Everyone, my name is Norman Hall from Star Business Solutions, and welcome to our webinar for September 2021. Today's presentation will be in collaboration with ezyCollect. Just a few housekeeping issues before we get started. We would like you to put in all of your questions in the question box, and we will address all of those at the end of the presentation. The reason I ask you to do that is that if you wait until the end of the presentation, quite often you'll forget what you had to ask us. So by putting them in, we can see them as we go through, and we can address all of those issues for you at the end of the presentation. We will be recording today's presentation and sending you a link to the recording within 24 hours. So if something goes wrong with your internet, don't stress it. At least you'll be able to get a link to the recording. But once again, welcome to the presentation. We do appreciate your time and effort by joining us. Today's presentation will cover an overview of ezyCollect. We'll look at some challenging aspects of accounts receivable. We'll talk about humanised collections, how to improve the customer experience, saving time and reducing risks through automation, and then at the end we'll have a Q&A time. Today's presentators are firstly myself. I'm Norman Hall, the Director of Marketing for Star Business Solutions. Our guest presenters will be Ajay Singh, the CEO and co-founder of ezyCollect, Graeme Bowers, who's the Channel Manager for ezyCollect, and our panellists to help with the Q&A session at the end will be Star Business Solutions CEO, Trish Hall. Now, without further ado, I will change the presenter and hand you over to Graeme Bowers to take it from here. Thanks, Graeme.
Thanks, Norman. Now, can everybody see the relevant screen? So let me just there we go. That's where we were, I guess.
GB, yeah,
good morning, everybody. Thank you for coming this morning. As Norman says, my name's Graeme Bowers. I'm the Partner Channel Manager here. A little bit of background on me. I'm a qualified accountant, so that would probably help a lot of you relate to me, either thinking that I've done everything you've done, or you probably, if you're not in the accounting profession and you're just here as a business owner, you probably go, oh, yo, not another accountant. But I go back in ERP a long way, and I go back in business a long way. So I've got a lot of experience in both systems and in debt collection. I've done it myself, so I feel your pain. I know all about receivables, and from that aspect, when I joined ezyCollect, I was really glad to finally find an organisation that could add functionality to ERPs out there to get collections up. I've got a mantra that I've always had in business, that a sale is not a sale until the money's in the bank. Up until that time, it's a gift. So from that point of view, if you relate to that, then you're going to relate to ezyCollect. Ajay, who's going to join me, and will do a lot of the in-depth showing you how the system works. He is one of the co-founders of ezyCollect, and he used to run a wholesale distribution business which was turning over $10 million, and he had real cash flow problems, which he'll tell you about a little bit later. So without further ado, let's look at the things that we're going to talk about today. So GB, just find the slide deck.
Yeah, GB, yeah, perfect. It was stuck on the previous slide. Thank you.
Yeah. So what we're talking about is taking away the pain of receivables. We all know what receivables are like. We all know what it's like to have salespeople that come in and they've got great orders, and you've got a full order book, and then you fulfill the orders, and then it goes into the debtors ledger, and then people either don't pay you late, and so it becomes a real pain. And so what we're going to talk about today is how you get away from bad debts, how you identify those bad debts, how you look at the risk of your book, which is a very important thing, and especially in today's modern business world, and how we get to look at those before they occur and before they become a problem. How you can streamline and automate your collections. Collecting debt can be a very time-consuming and overwhelming task for a lot of people in receivables. And so we're going to show you how that automated process will not only save you time, but it'll actually reduce your receivables as well. And then how do you make it easier for customers? How do you remove the barriers of people actually transacting with you? You might not believe this, but we found through our transactions that we see going through the payment portals that over 25% of people actually pay after 5 or 6 o'clock at night and before 7 or 8 o'clock in the morning. So that's a quarter of all your customers are transacting outside of the normal business hours. So if you put a barrier in their way, then you might not be the one they pay because it's too hard and they've got to either do it an EFT or they've got to call you with a query in the morning, and we can overcome all that as well. And then most importantly, how do you keep all this human? Because you can't just automate things and put it on set and forget mode because you lose the relationship with your customers. And so we have to put a human face on it and keep the human aspect to it to make sure that those relationships are kept intact. So I'll pass it over to AJ in a minute to actually show you how all this can be achieved. But perhaps, AJ, you'd like to talk to the 3 moments of truth and how we get the world-class AR experience. I'll hold on to the slide deck for a moment. It'll just make it easier.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, everyone. Good morning and good afternoon, depending on from where you're joining. And thank you, Norman and Trish, for hosting today. Look, today we really want to kind of cover off really valuable information, especially during this time where businesses are struggling with cash flow. It's hard to connect with your customers to ask them for money, especially when they might be having a fairly tough time. So today's webinar is really about saying what is the steps you can do so you can have a good steady amount of cash flow and how you can have that world-class AR experience. So as GB mentioned in the previous slide, there are a few outcomes from like today's meeting, but what we've tried to do is boil it down to 3 steps, 3 what we call moments of truth that you could use in your business today to get paid faster, to avoid bad debts, to have a good customer relationship. And the very first step is one that's very personal to me, is what we call best practice onboarding. Now, depending on the type of business you are, the size of your business, the way you extend trade credit to other businesses varies a lot. Now, larger businesses might have better processes, but often we find it's not the case, but you would think they would. But fundamentally, in my previous business, when I used to extend credit to new prospects, I would have my sales rep run in the door and say, AJ, we've got a brand new, this is my previous business, we've got a brand new customer and they want to buy a container of gloves. I'd be like, fantastic. And they'd be like, yep, but they want trade credit. I'm like, yeah, give it to them because it's a massive order. And I'd say, but make sure you send a trade reference form, right? And we'd have this PDF that we'd fax or we'd email it across, and it would have first name, last name, address, and it would have, give me 3 trade references. So I guess Norman, JB, and Trish, I'm sure you can all tell me the value of trade references. Are they ever bad? Never bad, right? And so we'd call these references, and we'd call maybe 2 of the 3. We wouldn't call all 3 because we just wouldn't have the time necessarily, because everyone's just always rushing, and we want the sale, and we'd give them credit. And we might do the first order on COD, but then after we get into this habit. And what happens is, as a business, if you're not using data, you're not using scores into making better decisions on who you should extend credit to, how much you should extend, how do you assess the risk of the customer, it'll become a bad debt in 6, 12, 18 months. And I wrote off about 500K every single year, and it's a massive amount of, not 500, sorry, 50K every single year in bad debts. And it almost crippled up our business. It kills your profitability. So having the right onboarding, data driven, but make it easy to do and simple is step 1. Right? Jimmy, you can move to step 2. And then once you've got the right customers, once you have the right customers, having a way to communicate with them in a really human way is super important. Automation is definitely important. There's a place for automation, and we'll talk to you about that. But having that human element around the automated systems is what allows you to have that repeat business, to maintain that relationship. So in this step 2, what we want to talk to you about during COVID times as well is how do you ensure that you keep your collections human, not just sending email reminders and hoping you get paid, right? And then step 3 is once you have the right customers and you have a way to communicate with them, you want to make it easy for them to actually pay you. What it says down there, frictionless payments. You want to reduce all the barriers so your customers find it easy to pay you. So as GB mentioned, it could be 8 o'clock at night, you put the kids to bed, you want your customers to be able to pay you at that time, at that moment, with all the methods that they want to pay you with: credit card, bank transfers, pay by installments. You want to give them those options. As long as you get the money in the bank, make it easy for them. So we'll show you in the next 10 minutes, really simply, how you can put those 3 things in your business, plugged into your ERP, and the results, I guess, GB, if you want to go through that now, basically,
Sure.
GB, you go through those. Yeah.
The three moments of truth is when you practice onboarding, you mitigate and you reduce risk, and that's a given. And in these times, that becomes more and more important. You really don't know when you onboard a new customer, or even with your existing customers, if they're going to be in business in 3 or 6 months' time. So it's important to be able to onboard them and then keep an eye on who they are. We actually say to people that we can reduce your overdues by up to 90%, but no one believes us. So even though it's true, we've had to say 70%, because then people go, oh, okay, I can believe 70, even though we find that most of our customers, or a lot of our customers, achieve up to 90% of a reduction in their overdue accounts. So at least 70. And with frictionless payments, we allow your team to be more efficient and effective, and we take away stress, because the payments often get written back into the ERP and auto allocate. And so it just becomes easier for everybody to transact business, to bill people, to receive money, and no barriers in the way. So AJ, over to you. Norman, can you change AJ to the presenter so he can let everybody have a look at what it is that we're going to show people today?
Perfect. Okay, so thank you for that, GB, and if you have any questions or comments, as Norma mentioned at the start, please use the chat box as we go through ezyCollect. If there's any issues with the audio as well, please let us know. So what I'm showing you now is how can we make these 3 moments of truth real, really simply, and what does ezyCollect do? So how do we bring this to life in partnership with Star? So the first thing I want to show you is this is ezyCollect, okay? It's a tool to help you manage those 3 moments of truth. It's a web-based tool, which means you can access it anywhere, anytime, and it connects into your ERP, right? And what it does, because it connects, it reduces the fact that you have to have 2 different systems. You can manage your accounts receivables and your cash flow and your onboarding and your payments in one system, and all the information here gets written back into your core ERP. So you don't have to worry about having 2 sources of truth. Your source of truth is still your ERP, but we sync the data all the time. So the first step, and look, there's a bunch of stuff in the system, but I want to focus on just those 3 things that we spoke to you about today, which is the onboarding, the collections process, and then the payments. So most businesses tend to look at their aging based on or they're like receivables based on their actual aging. So how old are my customers? These are customers, are current customers, that must be good. These are 1 to 30 days, that's not too bad. But what this doesn't tell you is what's the risk that these customers actually won't pay you. So there might be current customers, meaning that they're not overdue, but how many of those customers actually a bad debt risk? How many of them actually might have a risk of failure, or are about to go under, or have are almost in insolvency? How do you know that, right? And in my previous business, if I had that view to say these are the customers that are actually at risk, I would have saved a lot of bad debt. And so that's what the first thing I want to show you is, how do you use data into your onboarding and into your analysis of risk of your customers. So before I talk about the onboarding of new customers, let's talk about analyzing your current book, right? So because we sync the data between your ERP and ezyCollect, we can look at all your customers in this view, and we can assign a risk level to your customers. Now, you might ask us, how do we assign risk, right? The way we do it is we have in ezyCollect plugged in a third-party credit reporting bureau. So a credit reporting bureau that we use is a company called Dun & Bradstreet. In Australia, they're called Illion. And what it is a bureau that has scores on every business in the country, Australia and New Zealand. And the scores they have are both late payment scores and failure risk scores. And the way they get those scores is by getting data from thousands of different companies all around the country. And they aggregate it together. They send it to us. We match it with the data we have, and we give you these risk groups, right? And this is super valuable information. You know, even Trish, Norman, for your own business, if you want to profile your own customers, which are some of you on the call today, you can see which customers are, you know, yep, these are your great customers. They're paying you on time, and they pay other people on time too. Do more work with these customers, all the way down to, you know, these are customers that are actually a really bad debt risk, because guess what? They're paying you super late, and they're paying the rest of the market really late. So you've got almost here 7% of your debtors worth about 28,000 that might be a bad debt. Do something about this. Let's focus on this. You know, prepare for legal action is a step before that. And you know, things like potential relationship issue is a really interesting one. It's a case where they're paying you late, but they're paying other suppliers in the market on time. You know, this is like your superpowers. You know what people are doing with other suppliers, which you would never normally have. So we give you this information so you can make better decisions. So you might say, hey, these customers, why they're paying me late? I don't want to be paid late. So you can click on view all customers in this group, and you can take some action. You can maybe email those customers, or you can give them a, you know, you can set up a calling queue for them. But what you can see here, for example, and GB, just step in whenever you want to make a comment. No, okay. What you can see here, you have a late payment and a failure risk score, which is the external data. So it shows that they're paying other suppliers on time, but you can see the lateness here is how they're paying you. So they're paying you later. So maybe there's an issue with the way they see you guys. Maybe you don't chase hard enough, or maybe you don't chase at all, or maybe they see you as someone who can be paid late, right? This is where you can take some action. You can, if you want to add them to monitoring, which means that we'll send you alerts as things happen to those customers, or you can actually select all your customers, and you can take a bulk action, like send them all an email or an SMS, or you can add them to an automated queue that does things automatically as well. Jimmy, were you going to say something?
Yeah. Yes, it's look. Again, coming from a receivables background and accounting background, I mean, this information is quite invaluable. I've also been on the payables side, so I can give you, 27 reasons why I can't possibly pay you for at least another 35 days, and actually have you believe them. So when you've been on both sides of the fence, you realise that you can ignore a lot of things, but when you're armed with this, I just wish I'd had this back in the day when I was collecting money, because it just, the oversight that it gives you to be able to prioritize who you're chasing, to know up front who you thought was a great customer but you realize that they aren't, and the account management one, because quite often by the time you've realized that a customer is sourcing other suppliers, is not really interacting with you, is not paying you, it's too late, the customer's gone. But if you get a heads up straight away that someone's not paying you but paying everyone else, then immediately you can start to get into rectification mode. What are you doing? Are you invoicing wrong? Are you sending the wrong goods? Are you charging the wrong amounts? If you just tainted the relationship with them, and you can rectify that, so you can save customers as well. Sorry, AJ. That's
true, and every month that data is actually updated. So that's a report you should be looking at every month to see how people are changing, because once you look at it once, it changes all the time as well. And then of course you've got your actual applications, which is, how do I onboard new clients? How do I do that in a more data-driven way? So through ezyCollect, you can send credit applications to your clients, and you can, it's got some smarts to it. So instead of a paper-based form, which sometimes the writing could be a bit messy or ineligible, here you send them a form. It's professional, it's on your brand. They can put in their contact details, address information, who the directors are. They can put trade references, upload any documents. And once they complete the form, which takes maybe 5-10 minutes, it comes back into your queue of application forms that are, completed, impartial, and then you as a credit officer can come back into ezyCollect and say, okay, look, this person's got a completed form, they've got their ID verification documents there. First step, before I call my references, let me look at the score. And very quickly, we provide you with information on the company as per what's in ASIC, so you can then cross-reference to what they actually said versus what is actually on file, and then you can actually get a score. These are scores sourced from a independent bureau to say this is the actual score of ezyCollect. So you can see, we're a low late payment risk and we're average failure risk score, right? And this is information that is going to give you the I guess the superpowers to make better decisions. And if you feel the score is great, okay, let me then go ahead and do my reference checking, which is always going to be great. I can guarantee you that. Very rarely it's not. And then if you feel like it's still you want a second check, you can also then get a credit report, like a live credit report on that customer right there. So you can see we provide through Ilion, which is Dun & Bradstreet, all the information on that business in terms of a credit report. So we can drill into who the directors are, any PPSR claims, any court actions, any past inquiries from other companies on that business, any cross directorships. Really valuable information, right? And this is information that most businesses don't have access to. So coming back to the slide deck, the first step, and I'm going to move a bit faster here, was really about best practice onboard the customers and monitor the risk. Trish or Norman, I mean, I don't know if you guys want to comment with your customer group that you currently have. Do you see this come up when you kind of consulting with them and talking to them about their business processes?
Trish?
Yeah, absolutely. Many of our customers have exactly what you're talking about here, that whether it's from that very initial credit, looking at the credit and going and finding out too late that there's possible credit issues, to then just that reference checking and so on. It's a huge admin task as well.
Okay. Awesome. I mean, it's good to know because
I'm an ex-bank manager, so I was on the side of actually writing references from the bank and things like that at times. So yeah, they weren't worth the paper they were written on.
Right. Okay. So if we all agree it's a common problem, let's try and help you as the folks on the call. How can we solve this in a more systematic way, right? Once you have the right customers, then very quickly what I want to show you is you can set up a communication strategy with your clients that's more humanized. So this is about using automation with the human side. So for example, because we're connected to your ERP, we can start to set up a sequence of events post the invoice being raised. So for example, some businesses want a copy of the invoice to be sent again because they don't get it sent from the ERP straight away. We can do that. We can set up pre-reminders from before the invoice is due. So we look at the due dates, we can see the terms all set up in your ERP. We read that information and we can set up a sequence of events before the invoice is due. And then post the due date, we can start a communication workflow that's post due. Now, post due is really interesting because what we want to do is you might have multiple emails to the same customer. We don't want to send too much communication, so we do things like we group all the invoices together into one email, like what a real person would do, and that's what we send. So we don't kind of bombard people with lots of emails either. And you can of course edit this. You can say I want to send it, after 5 days. I want to send it by SMS. SMS is not very common, but let's say SMS. I want to attach all my overdue invoices, and then it's a kind of set and forget template. You kind of mail merge what you want. And when it gets sent to the customer, it comes from your email address. It's all in your brand, has all the invoices attached, and you can do a bunch of other cool stuff, which I'll show you in a second. And what we find is if you keep doing emails and emails, the first 2 emails is what 40% of your customers will pay on an email, and that's good. But if you keep doing emails, I think what the data shows, it drops to like less than 10% effectiveness because people start to ignore it. That's how it's just an email. So you got to do something different. You could do an SMS, you could do a fax, you could do a physical letter through here as well. You could actually post a letter through here automatically. But what we find is a very good step is a call. And this is part of that human element. Calling is really important. But if you already have a team of people who are calling, instead of them having to spend time calling when someone would have already paid in that top 40%, let them call the people that need to be called. So the call actually creates a task for you to call those customers on that day. And if someone did pay, by the way, it can send a thank you message as well. So it's not like, you know, you want to ignore the people that have paid. They've paid, automatically send a thank you message to them. And it's a really big thing. And some businesses use the thank you message as a way of giving them a promotion for next month's special. So you could use it as a bit of a marketing thing as well. But when the call's due, it creates an email that goes to you every morning. And when you come into work, you have a list of the calls that you have to make, right? And this is actually a very big list here because this is a test file. But you can see I have 51 calls. It could be 5 calls for there. It could be 2 calls. In fact, we had a customer, I think a couple of weeks ago, who called up our support desk and said, "I have no calls in my task list. I think something's broken." And we were like panicking. Oh my gosh, what's like broken? And we found out that they actually had no overdues. They'd done all their tasks, and they were on top of the debts, you know, and they had lots of other things to do, but that was taken care of, you know. And it was a really good feeling for them and for us to know that they're on top of their account. And it doesn't mean that people are not being communicated to. There's still emails going out and whatnot, but there were no physical calls required on that day. So I can see my calls, I can see who I have to call, how old are they, what's the balance due, what's the risk level. So if I only have 5 minutes, maybe I'll just call my high risk customers today, right? I don't want to call all my customers. So let's say I pick up one of my high risk customers. I can see here for Hayes, Grims, and Christiansen. I don't know who makes up these names. This is a demo file. We've got all the information that comes in from the ERP. What's the credit limit? What's the usage? What's the terms? Are they on hold? So in this case, they're on credit hold. That's a bad sign. I can see there is a call task due. I can see the history of what's already happened, right? So all the history here could be email sent, it could be letters, it could be phone calls. I can see my risk level for the customer, right? I can see all my invoices as well here as well, and all the invoices from the system and any contact information that comes from the ERP. So when I make my call, I can actually click complete the phone call. I can record my notes. I can manage a payment. You know, I can say this customer spoke to them, they're having an issue because, you know, It's one of GB's reasons, you know, the checks in the mail, and you know, I believe them and I've agreed to not chase them for say 3 days. So I can set up a promise to pay in 3 days time. I can pause communication to that customer for a period of time. But the good thing is, if they still haven't paid at the end of that time, it'll automatically unpause, alert you they've broken the promise, and it will start chasing again. Because the key to getting paid is consistent, persistent follow-ups, right? You can't let it just go. So even though you're doing a call task, we will always force you to have a next action item. You know, you can't leave it as an open call task. It has to be, okay, close it, but what's next? Or you've made your call, it'll go to the next step in 5 days, you know, whenever your workflow. So it's about that consistency that gives you peace of mind. And if someone still doesn't pay at the end of the day, right, you can always then, if you need to, escalate to a third-party lawyer or a debt collector. That's a manual step. We'll never automate that step. But, you know, if you ever need to, we want to close the loop. We don't want to leave it that you've done 10 calls, 7 emails, and still no result. You need to do something, right? And the logical end is a debt collection escalation if you need to, right? So it's really about having a complete end-to-end process. And there's a lot more I can show you here.
AJ, for those people who are in the receivables who are attending today, you will know what it's like when you either have to go to when you do escalate to a debt collector, and the first thing they ask you is, can I have a copy of all the invoices that are outstanding? Can I have the payment history? Can you show me all the correspondence you've had with these people? And you just sit there with your head in your hands going, that's going to take me the best part of a day to pull all those PDFs out, to find all that email trail, to get all that together to send up to the debt collection agency. Not with ezyCollect, it's all there, and it'll just produce you all that information to send up to the debt collector. And so you save all that time as well. Obviously, we never want to get to debt collection, but there are some people that's the last resort, and it will save you time. Even if you go to small claims court and you need to just produce that documentation quickly and easily, ezyCollect will do that for you.
Yeah. And this is an example of an email that gets sent through the system. It'll go on from your email address, of course, and you can see how it groups the emails together. This is an example of a template. It pre-fills all the information. As GB's point, it attaches all the invoices automatically as a link or as a PDF. Some businesses need a PDF because they're using software that reads the PDF, you know, for like payables, or if it's a link, you know, it's just easier sometimes. But they get everything here that they need to pay. So if you can imagine now, the third step in our 3-step process was frictionless payments. So what we want to do is we've step one, the onboarding and the credit. Number two, the collections. I showed you how you can automate your collection process. Number three is frictionless payments, and adding a pay now button is as simple as that, is what I'm trying to say. But having it there in your invoices, in your reminders, in your sales orders, in your purchase orders, on your e-commerce websites. You know, if you have e-commerce and you're accepting orders online, but you want your B2B clients to be able to, you know, use their account and pay you, this is what we can do. We have a payments product that can connect in to whatever you're using to help you manage payments, right? So this example is on a reminder, but it could be on your actual invoice that's coming out of your ERP. So I click on this pay now button here, for example. Assume it's, you know, it's 8 o'clock at night, put the kids to bed. And look, not all businesses are going to pay in this way. Some people do EDI transfers through the ERP straight to you, and that's fine. But there's a big portion that will actually do it this way. And the proof's in the pudding. We see it. We see, you know, we process about $300-400 million worth of credit card payments to some of our very large businesses every single month. So it's not like you might think, oh, our customers don't pay by credit card. Yes, a lot of the big guys like your Coles and your Woolies have EDI, but some of your mid-sized and smaller customers, they want the points. They have cash flow issues. They want other ways to pay, right? So give them those options, as long as it doesn't cost you anything and you get paid on time. So if you already accept credit card, we can plug in your credit card facility. If you don't, we'll give you a facility that's done, you know, very quickly within 15 minutes. And if you also, you know, feel like you don't want to even pay credit card fees, we can automatically surcharge the fees as well. You know, so because these are all there's lots of ways to manage payments. But what you can see here is when I click the Pay Now button, I go into a portal that I can see all my invoices in my supplier or in, you know, your ERP. So, you know, Trish, for example, and Norman, if you used ezyCollect, your customers got this, they'd see all the invoices that you've raised that they owe you. They can click on the invoice. They can see the line items of all the different things that they, you know, that you've invoiced, the dollar value. They can, you know, look at a previous payment history of things they've done. They can make a one-off payment if they had to pay a, say, like a deposit for something. And they can see previous statements as well that you've sent them, right? So it's kind of a self-service as well. I can come in here and I can say, hey, hang on, before I pay an invoice, I want to ask you, why did you charge me that? I thought that was covered by a support contract, you know, and that will send an email to you. It'll put it into ezyCollect, into the notes section as well. Everything's kind of, we're trying to reduce that friction so they pay you. And eventually they can come in and say, you know, I want to pay this invoice for, let's say, $2,000, okay? They can do a bank transfer and just pay that to you, and that's, you know, super quick. Bank transfer takes a couple of days to like clear. That's just the way it is on the BEC system. They can choose to pay over, say, 5 installments. This is more for finance offering. So let's say I don't have $2,000, I can pay $688 over say 60 days, which means if I do it over 60 days, it'll reduce how much I pay. You'll get the money straight away, Trish and Norman, if you're using it. But your customer pays a finance company over, say, you know, 5 installments. But the most common thing that we see is people pay by like credit card, right? So they click on pay by credit card. They can put in their like their email for their own receipt, so that they get their own receipt. Put in the card number. Off you go. The name, the security thing, and you can see here the rules have been set up in this example that they're going to surcharge the fees. So, in fact, you will pay nothing as a supplier because you've surcharged the whole thing. You could choose to go 50-50, absorb half and surcharge half. Or you might say, I'll Visa, MasterCard, I'll absorb, Amex, I'll surcharge, right? So you can have whatever rules you want. So technically this would cost you $0. It could be completely free, the actual payment module, right? Because you don't need to pay any fees necessarily, but you know, it's important. And of course, we're just testing the concept of earning points as well. This is not quite live, it's more of a test. But we're testing the fact that if you pay through here, you can double dip, earn Qantas points here, and you know how you would normally, or whatever points that you want to earn. So that's more of a kind of test at this stage. So this is the payments module. I know time-wise, I think we're getting close to the end of here, but really it's a way for you to accept payments. And when you get the payment, depending on the ERP, it'll write the payment back into your ERP as well. It'll allocate the payment, which, you know, saves everyone a lot of time and effort as well. So I'm going to just for a minute stop sharing my screen and come back here so we can I think just see if there are any questions, or GB, if you want to add anything before we go into questions.
No, I think we don't want to run too much over time. We'll just wait. We'll wait for the questions.
And just while we're doing that, Trish, Norman, you've seen the product, I think a few times. Where do you see the biggest pain point? Is it in the payments? Is it in the onboarding? Is it in just the collection system with your clients? Like, where do you see the biggest pain? Sorry, Trish, I think you're on mute.
I had Trish on mute.
Sorry
about that, Trish.
It's okay.
My wife, I'd like to put her on mute.
There you go. Typically, I think do see it in the actual collection process and the efficiency of which, it takes a long time for that collection, for people in collections to actually do those collections. And in some of our clients, some of them are dealing with large volumes of invoices, but small dollar values. And the time to do that collection process is often longer than what and the cost is much more than what the invoices are actually worth in the end. So it's about reducing that admin of the collection process. But as I mentioned earlier as well, it's also making sure that you're well informed going into a new client, a new customer or prospect, to rather than just say yes to everyone, as you mentioned, Ajay, and to say, okay, it's a great new order, but end up not getting the best out of it, because you end up costing you more because you've given them goods or services, and the reality was you were never going to get the full payment.
Yeah, true. True. That's fair.
Okay, well, AJ, we've got a couple of questions that have come in already. So how about we address those, if you like? So either Graeme or Trish or AJ can address these. But the first question from Debbie is, how long does it take to implement ezyCollect?
Jimmy, I'll let you do that because I'll say 2 days.
No, yes, no, yeah. We can't let AJ answer that question because he'll tell you can have it by 3 o'clock this afternoon, and the customer success team get a little bit agitated with that. Normally, between 7 and 14 days if it's straightforward. Some implementations can take a little bit longer because of the believe it or not, the partner channel might not always have the resource straight away to be able to work with the API or do the setup on the partner side. So we've got to work with the partner channel as well. So that's working with Norman and Trish to make sure that we don't suddenly make promises that they can't keep. But as a rule of thumb, around about 14 working days from start to finish, which includes the onboarding, installation, and of course the training.
Okay. Next question is from Justine, who is an existing Star customer. Who do I call if I need support? And I suppose they're coming from the fact that most people that here are Star clients, and we normally provide their ERP support. So if we link you in as an extra independent software vendor linking back to our software, who do they talk to, Star or ezyCollect?
So JB, I can take that one if you like. We at the first instance, you would call ezyCollect because it would just be a quicker process. Over time, Star might get the resources and say, like, we want to support ezyCollect. That's fine too in the future. But I think in the first instance, as we start working with you, it would be a case of call us as much as you need. We're here by phone, by email, in app as well. We have chat in app. But yeah, or you can call you myself, GB, because at the end of the day, when you're putting in something like this, you want support if there are questions, and that's kind of what why we're here. But then if you prefer to speak to Star, then we can work with Star on that as well.
Okay. Well, just a question from me on that, AJ. because I haven't actually thought about asking this question before. The support from ezyCollect, are they normal office hours or are they beyond that?
But the typical support, because we have customers in about 18 countries, so we try and cover a fairly large range. But for Australia and New Zealand, it's kind of 8:30 a.m. to I'd say 6:30 p.m. typically is what we'd cover by phone. If you need something outside that, then we need to just talk to you and work out how we can support you. But typically, it's not like business critical where you need to talk to someone straight away. But if you do, then of course we can give you GB's mobile number, right, GB?
Okay. The next question from Chris. Can I get the risk analysis by itself, or do I have to also have the collections part?
So yeah,
Jay, do you want to take that?
Okay, sure. So the answer is yes, right? All those three things we showed you, the risk analysis, the collections, and the payments, are three separate modules. They are better together because they are integrated and each one talks to the other one. But if you want to use it separately, you can. Payments by itself can be used separately. You can use the risk module by itself separately. The answer is yes. Answer is just yes.
Okay, great. Well, I've only got those three questions in here at the moment. Oh, wait a sec. Someone else has just come through. Sorry. With removal of credit card payments, are we charged per invoice payment from ezyCollect as well as Star? Currently, we are with MYOB account right moving over to Star, and we pay a fee per transaction of credit card payment made. That comes from Ainsley.
Okay, so if you're referring to if I understand the question correctly, Norman, if you're referring to credit card fees specifically, the fees you pay for like credit cards, you only pay one party. You aren't paying more than one party credit card fees, right? So let's say we work with the payment module. If you already are working with, say, ANZ Bank as your merchant, whatever they charge you is what you'll pay. If you say you don't have a merchant facility, and you say, I don't have a way to accept online credit cards, like I might have a POS terminal, but I don't have an online credit card facility, we can give you one. Typically, the rates are like 1.5, 1.6% for Visa, MasterCard. If you're a bigger business, it drops all the way down to 1.2% or even lower, depending on your business. Plus, there's like I think 25, 30 cents, what they call gateway fee. But that's the only fee that you would pay. Now you can surcharge that whole lot, you can absorb it, or if you already have a provider you're using, we plug that provider into the payments product. If I understand the question, Norman, so if you're using Account Right Live, you wouldn't be paying there and moving to Star and paying again. Like you could use the same provider from Account Right Live into Star, or we could use one that we can provide you. I think I'm answering the question correctly.
Yeah, Ainsley's they're currently using Account Right, but they're actually moving over to Star, which means they'd be moving to MYOB Advanced. Okay.
So the
next question.
We can power the payments through Advanced in the same way.
Yeah. Okay. From Justine, any plans to have risk assessment for individuals?
So our current agreement only covers businesses, so B2B. Because of privacy laws, we can't actually get scores on individuals unless we have their consent. Businesses are different. You can get scores on businesses, but on individuals, you can't actually. We as a third party can't get it on individual unless the individual authorizes that to happen. So unless
sole traders and that, it's a bit hard to do that part with.
If you have an ABN, yes. All good for like ABNs, but an actual individual like Joe Smith, if you want to know his credit rating, we can't present that to you. But if you want to know Joe Smith's and he has an ABN, we can give you the ABN score.
Okay, fine. Ainsley says thank you. She understands. Another question from Justine. If your customer are individuals, do you support or have a roadmap to support individual risk assessment? I think that's
Same question, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
so,
if you've got a specific use case and you need individuals, we can put you in touch directly with Ilian, and they've got a very large bureau that deals with individuals, but you'd be probably a different process to get that. Maybe you'd need to get some, maybe you've already had, if you already got the authority on file that your individual's given you authority to access their credit file, then you're fine. We could probably do that and we can give that to you. But if you don't have that authority, we can't do it through ezyCollect today. But I can definitely introduce you to Ilian directly if you need some scores on like individuals, and see if we can like help you with that.
Okay, fine. I think that's all the questions there at the moment. So before we wrap things up, does anyone else want to ask a question?
I think JB wants to give what's the next steps here if people do want to sort of access to the product.
Yeah, I was just waiting for Norman to wrap up.
Okay, well, what's the next steps, Graeme?
Well, the next steps are these. You can either contact Norman or Trish directly, and they'll put you in contact with me, or you can email partners@ezycollect.com.au, and that will come straight to me as well, and I can reach out to you to discuss your needs any further. Norman and Trish drove a hard bargain today. I wanted to give you 10% for the first month, and Norman said no, that won't fly. So you can see how my whole shoulder is dislocated when they twisted my arm. So for the people that actually turned up today, you get a 50% discount for the first 3 months, and we drop the installation and training price to $9.95 from $16.95. So you can thank Norman and Trish for that, because my nose started to bleed just even at the thought of 50%, but that's just me. So there you go. There's a little bit of there's a chocolate for turning up today and spending some time with us. I hope you got a lot of benefit out of it. I hope it's given you food for thought. Receivables and inventory are probably the two most important things that you'll ever have in a business, because when you look at them and you convert them, and if you've got $200,000 or $300,000 in overdues, convert that to $100 bills and put it into suitcases and put it in a room, and that's just how much cash is just lying around that you could be using in your business somewhere else. So it's much better in your account than sitting having to chase it. So thank you all for coming today. We really appreciate it, and we hope you got a lot out of it.
On behalf of Star and ezyCollect, thank you. I know it's hard for everyone at the moment, and everyone's probably fatigued with too many webinars, but I actually learned a bit more today about ezyCollect. I've seen the demonstration a couple of times before from AJ, and yet he still managed to throw in a couple of extra things that I hadn't either noticed or seen before, so that's good. As I said before, a recording will be sent to everyone who has attended the webinar sometime today, and if you did register and weren't here for the presentation, you'll receive a copy tomorrow. But if you're not here, you probably didn't hear what I just said then, so my apologies. Star has got a couple more webinars coming up over the next few months, so please look out for the invitations, and please feel free to register for them when those invitations do come up. So once again, thank you very much, and have a great day.
Thank you, everyone.